Hello and welcome to my video lecture on how to set up or dynamically create an insert statement in PHP. There are a lot of ways of doing this. We can get into various variable substitutions and stuff like that. But this way sometimes is a little clearer for some people. So I'm going to use this technique. Right now we've got an index PHP file. And it consists of 3 text inputs, a radio button, and 3 checkboxes type of inputs. And we are going to be calling, when this submits, the subscribe PHP file using the post method. If we look at the subscribe PHP file, you can see that I've gone through and I'm doing some basic validation as far as just checking to make sure that these post array elements have been set before I try to put them into a local variable. So what we can do is we can start off and let's start putting together our local variable for query. So in here we'll start off and we're going to pretend we're going to do an insert into. And we're going to pretend that we have a table out there called submit. And that submit table is going to have some columns. So let's say that it has a quantity column, first name column, last name column, a crust column, and couple of topping columns. All right, so that's the beginning of our SQL statement that we're going to use to insert our data. And then actually we're also going to need to start putting together, I'm going to use the concatenation operator. So what we're going to do is we're going to supply the values. So now the trick is, how do I supply the values here? And then what happens when you're missing values, right? So here we're going to do an if is set, right? So we're checking to see if somebody gave us a value. So if somebody gave us a value, we're going to add that value to the values clause of our SQL statement. And in this case, if we get the quantity, which we should because the user has to enter a quantity, so we're going to need to put the value into our SQL statement. So in this case, we don't need quotes because quantity is going to be a numeric value. So we'll use the local variable. All right, so whatever the local variable is now going to be added in to our SQL statement. Since that's the first one, we don't need any commas, since that would be the first one on the other side of the parentheses. Now here's the problem. What do we do if we don't have a value? Since our insert into statement is supplying us or listing all of the columns, we have to put a value in there. So if we don't have a value, we're going to assume that our database is going to allow us to put a null value in there. So in this case, we would do query dot equals null. All right. So then as we build, we would do this. So what do we want to do? Maybe we want to check and see what this looks like in our HTML. So maybe I go back to my index PHP and I grab out the start of some HTML. So down here, doc type, right, and there's my HTML. So inside my HTML, I want to display what's going on. So either I can echo it here, or maybe down here I can echo it. right? So maybe I just, instead of messing around with my HTML, I can echo out whatever is in my query variable, right? So let me do this. I'm going to save all this. I want to see what this looks like already since I've started to code, right? So I've already got some values in there, and I'm going to submit. And I've got insert into submit quantity, and there's my values 1, right? Which is the value that I got. So that's looking good so far. So I just want to make sure that, you know, before I move any further, that I'm not doing anything stupid. So here we'll continue with our query, right? So it's going to be dot equals. So here again, if this is, well, let me show you what it looks like. So if I just put in, if I do the same thing as I did with quantity and I put in first name, right? And then I do an else, right? And then I basically say query equals null, right? Now in this case, we got to figure out whether or not we're putting commas in here. We could up here add commas to after this because we know we're going to be putting something there. So I can put that there, right, with a little space, and then here I can concatenate that with a comma and a space, right? So now we're getting our commas. Here we would need the same thing, and then here we would need the same thing. All right, so now I'm putting in, so now I'm taking care of quantity, I'm taking care of first name. Let me see what that looks like. I'm going to do a save there, go back here, I submit, and we get an unexpected error. So let's see, what am I doing wrong there? I am, oh, semicolon, things that are going to make me want to kill myself. So let's submit that. So now this apparently looks good, but if you know your SQL, you realize that Mike can't be sitting out here by itself. So I'm going to have to put quotes around that because that's text data. And I'm going to assume that that's text data that I'm going to be putting into my PHP. And then here I can just include my apostrophe there. So by doing that and saving that, I go back to my PHP and I click submit. Now I'm surrounding Mike and the quotes. And essentially what I can do is I can go down, since this video is starting to get a little long, I can pretty much do that for each of these so that if data is left out, I would get a null, which would get, which again, assuming that the database has been designed in such a way as to allow for null values into those columns, you'd be okay. And then, you know, once it's done, right, in your PHP, and hopefully you have a PDO object or, you know, a MySQL object, something like that, you would use, you know, say you did a $DB and you did a prepare. Right, and you passed in to prepare your query, and then let's say you executed it. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, close my parens. Still doesn't like that. Well, maybe we'll just do the $DB, and we'll just exec our query. Right? And right now it doesn't like that either, but whatever. You get the idea. You know, you would go through, you build your SQL, maybe echo it out just to make sure it looks good, and then you would pass it to your database, your MySQL database or something, once it's been properly formatted. And that's the end of my video on how you would build your insert SQL statement off of your data entry form. and do somewhat validation. Now again, this isn't deep validation. We're not checking to make sure that we're getting character data for our names, and we're not using the HTML special chars function to make sure we're not getting malicious code entered. This is just very basic. All right, but yeah, again, so that ends that video lecture. And now hopefully you'll be able to use a technique like this, or again with substitutions to set up your SQL statements for your projects. All right.